Hello, and welcome to this episode of Next Sell Over. I'm your host, Jenna Moser, fractional COO and strategic growth partner. And this is the podcast where we get out of the weeds and talk about what it actually takes to grow a lean, high profit business. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Corry, the founder of Digitsquid, where she helps business owners tame messy books and make sense of their numbers. She's been at it since she was 14 when she first started bookkeeping in a dental office, and she's carried that curiosity throughout buying a failing business in 2008, running a wildly successful cloth diaper service from 2009 to 2012, and today running a firm that helps entrepreneurs avoid the same pitfalls she's seen firsthand. She swears she didn't name her company after a sea creature by accident. Squids are just as good at navigating murky waters as she is. Corry's passion is helping business owners find clarity and confidence in their finances so that they can make intentional decisions to build their business they actually wanted from the beginning. So, Corry, thank you so much for being here, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenna. I'm really looking forward to this too.
What struck me in your bio was the clarity and confidence. Like that is like my biggest thing. My little tagline is like turning chaos into clarity. So when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be good. We're on the same page. So for everyone listening, like let's just start with the basics. How big is your team? Is it just you? Is it you and a couple others? Tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so it's just me. And then my husband came on in May of 2024.
Very cool. And what kind of services or value do you provide to your clients?
Yeah, so we really started out focusing on bookkeeping and helping business owners really understand their finances. And that's where I had gotten my start, was in bookkeeping when I was 14. And I found, though, that I wasn't just offering bookkeeping. I found that from my experiences that I have learned to offer something beyond that. So while I still really love that, I really love jumping into really, really messy books and getting them all cleaned up and doing that kind of thing. Really, the goal that I have with every single client that I work with is to help move them to what we call advisory services. And that is where we really dissect their business and look at what the key parts of their business are, what is working, what they're exceptional at, and then what is their biggest challenge. So I like to use kind of a stoplight framework. We've got the green light, which is everything is good to go. We've got the yellow light, which is what we need to work on, what may be working. And then the red light, which is what is really, really hindering the growth of your business. And so the goal ultimately is to really narrow that down to tackle one or two things at a time. And then as those improve, you're going to really feel your business is improving. Things are getting simpler, you're understanding your numbers better, and we will see a literal move from reactionary decision making in the business to intentional decision making. And so that's, when we get to that point, when the client starts to really feel that shift, that they can actually make intentional business decisions, that's when we really see that things are working the way that they're supposed to.
Yes, no, I love that. I totally feel the same way. I also like that you make it kind of fun with the whole green, yellow, and red. That's so fun. So, do you find that most people do they come to you first for bookkeeping and like you try and steer them towards advisory, like this is how I can help you more, or do people come straight just to advisory?
Yeah, most people come for bookkeeping. There's so much confusion. Sometimes people will call advisory services fractional CFO services and things like that. If you are operating a business that's maybe even, between $100,000 and $500,000 revenue, a lot of times people will look and say, well, I don't need a CFO. And, they don't necessarily need a staffed CFO, but they still probably need someone to help them understand what it all means financially, to put it into context, to really explain it in terms that are understandable. And so really our goal is always to move them to that advisory sort of role. And a lot of times people initially they look at it and they think, well, that's a CFO is going to be cost prohibitive. The great thing about when you have an advisor or a fractional CFO who knows what they're doing and is working in your best interest is that the return on the investment is always significantly more. So you are going to see that your business is scaling and significantly more profitable than the investment. So yeah, most clients do come to us just wanting bookkeeping, just thinking like, well, I need to get a loan or I need to file my tax return or I need to do something related to their books. And once we get that all sorted out for them, then that's when the magic happens.
Gotcha.
That's really for them, they think that's going to be the end of the journey. That's really the beginning of the journey for them.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's helping them see that value, right? So yeah, it is totally scary when you're having to like and I like how you kind of said, advisor versus the fractional CFO, because that term, fractional CFO, is becoming more popular, whereas like a couple years ago, you didn't really hear it. And so people are becoming more aware of what that is. But I think, yeah, it's just another like fancy word for saying like advisor in your financial area, right? So I think that's cool how you kind of like distinguish between the two. So very cool. What would you say is one of like your biggest wins that you've had recently that has helped you move your business forward, or even helped one of your clients move their business forward? What would you say?
Yeah. So if we look at it from like a client perspective, I have a client who I've been working with for, I would say probably, it was since last December. When she came to me, she was a referral and was in a very challenging place from a bookkeeping perspective. And again, that's how a lot of people come to me. That's how they find me. Um, she did not have a lot of clarity. She knew that her books were wrong. And she needed to do her taxes. She needed her tax return filed. She had been encouraged to set up an S Corp. She did not know necessarily all of the things that were included in that, and her business has been established for quite some time. And so, really, our goal was not necessarily to get her books in order. That was obviously important, but that was not the priority because we can offer advisory services. We can advise them on how to get from point A to point B, even with messy books. It's better when we have clean data to look at. But if we don't have that, then we do what we have to do. And so we just got to a point just finally where I was kind of hiding all of her reports from her because I didn't necessarily want her to see them. She was doing very well and I was trying to focus on other wins as opposed to profitability. And so we had these little goals to get to where she needed to be. And so this last week we actually met, and I pulled up her P&L and I did a month over month, and I showed it to her, and she couldn't believe her eyes. She was shocked. And I said, this is what, and there's still some things that are outstanding. So like the net income is not necessarily completely accurate, but knowing that next year she's going to be completely caught up and that is what her profitability is going to look like.
That's awesome.
It's completely life changing is what her profitability is going to look like. And that's by simply implementing a few things. We still, we've really only made it a few steps in. And so I imagine that she is probably going to 10x her revenue within the next year based on how motivated she is. And now that she has the information she needs so that she can make really solid decisions.
Wow, very
So that's just it
that's awesome.
makes me almost cry because it's life changing.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. So what kind of do you have a certain like niche or industry that you work with, or are you just kind of wide open?
Yeah. So my original niche is dentistry. um, and working with dentists and ones in the medical field. But really, there there's not really a niche um, that's required. There's the the information is all very, very similar. So when you kind of break it all down, it can really work across any sort of industry, any sort of client. Obviously, like there's a level of more proficiency with software and tech in one industry, but yeah, we really, as long as a client aligns with our values in our business and is really interested in taking the steps that they need to take, because there's often some pain,
Yeah.
which often is going to mean change, and change is hard. So as long as they are willing to make changes, we are more than willing to work with them.
You mentioned like tech and tools. So, are there any that you're currently using that you just like love or that you absolutely hate and like don't recommend for people?
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
have
you can probably tell by my book on the shelf. We are a big fan of Zero. We love Zero, and just how simplistic it is for businesses to use. And we find that people who are in other accounting softwares that it tends to get very complicated, and things tend to get messier. So Zero is a lot simpler of a platform. There tends to be less mess for clients. And so if they have less mess and they're able to do their own bookkeeping or have someone on staff even take care of those daily or weekly tasks, things stay in order enough that we can help them with the bigger picture. And so obviously if they want to outsource their bookkeeping, that's always welcome too. But if they don't, if they want to keep that close, it's a simple way for them to be able to do that and for us to still be able to help them with that bigger financial picture.
okay, very interesting. You're my second zero versus my episode 2 that is going to be launching soon, she's all about Zero too and it's like anti QuickBooks. So it's interesting to hear another person because you hear so much about QuickBooks and everyone is, QuickBooks, QuickBooks. So it's really refreshing to hear some different perspectives, especially with Zero, because it is up and coming. Like I feel like you're hearing more and more about it now. So very interesting.
Yeah.
So if someone has, oh, go
And
ahead.
I was just going to mention, and a lot of my background is in QuickBooks Online. I started using QuickBooks Desktop in 2003. Before that, it was paper ledgers. Those still actually exist. Like I just saw like paper ledgers you can buy them at Costco. But then in 2021, moved to QuickBooks Online, and I actually partnered with an accounting education company and created a QuickBooks Online cleanup course to teach those workflows to people. And as of now, we have nearly almost 2,000 students in that QuickBooks Online cleanup course. But like I said, um, QuickBooks Online is it is a fantastic platform, and there are a lot of people who need to use it because it does have some of those more complex um, sort of workflows that people may need. But I think that for most industries, Zero is just a really solid solution on, just if you can keep it just simple, just, even as far as like with e-commerce, they have some really good solutions, and that seems like a more complicated type workflow, but it it really is something that I'm confident is you're going to keep hearing more about it.
Yeah, I think this is like the universe like telling me, okay, like you really need to look into this.
Yeah, if you'd like to look into Zero, I'd be more than happy to meet with you offline. We can talk about Zero.
So funny. So, kind of going back to like your client's win that you were talking about. So now let's kind of like flip it. What would you say is like a mistake that you've made that ended up teaching you something super valuable that you can now, help others with?
Yeah. So, um, oh, that's a big one because I think if there's so many, like early on, before I really realized um, that there are people who will ask for help who don't necessarily want help. And that's probably the biggest loss. And seeing those is just as painful because it, we invest a lot of our emotional energy into wanting to help people. And so I'll just speak very generically. Um, but yeah, there was a company that I worked um, that I offered my services outsourced to them in the beginning, and they were very interested in growth. They just really wanted to grow, and no matter how much I tried to explain to them that growth actually comes from simplicity, they did not want to hear that. They just kept literally buying businesses, buying failing businesses, and trying to make that work. And as far as I know, their business is still struggling. When I finally disengaged with them, just because it got to a point where it was not worth me collecting a monthly fee from them when they were not able to take the advice where they were at that point in time. Um, it was very difficult. It was very stressful to see that they were
Yeah.
so close. And I just actually finished reading a really good book that talks about that, about how simplicity comes from really honing in on the one thing that you're fantastic at. And it gives the example of Divvy, the
Oh,
company Divvy, which a lot of us are familiar with in the industry, and how they had one product that they focused on and nothing else. And they said when they started to get distracted, they realized we have this fantastic product. We're not going to get distracted, and they ended up selling their business which well beyond what its revenue was. It was incredible what they ended up selling it for. And so when we have clients who don't want to necessarily take that advice, it's heartbreaking because we just see them working like so hard.
it doesn't
And
look that way.
yeah, so much harder than they need to. And, and then they're just constantly struggling. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I feel that because, like, at the end of the day, like, my client, yes, like, you're a business, I'm a business, but, like, we're also human, and, like, creating that, like, bond and, like, you truly care about them and, like, want to see the best for them, and so it's, yes, heartbreaking when they are choosing to, go a different path, and it's like, "Oh, but you could be so much, like, you could be so much farther than where you are if you would just, like, go back this way a little bit."
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally.
Yeah. And I think that we are very empathetic people. And that's something that sometimes we hold that back. But our empathy is what makes it so that we can relate to their experiences. And that's what makes it so that we can see through their eyes and help them. But at the same time, when we're when we're empathetic with them,
Yeah.
then we also feel that same pain that they're feeling, and that can stress us out if we don't kind of set those boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. You kind of, so going back to the client you were talking about, with your wins, you talked about like her reporting and also with like your green, yellow, red light system. How do you guys do your reporting, or like what are you tracking, either metric wise or KPIs to like, help your clients see, where they should be going? Like what kind of um, reporting process are you using or
Yeah,
doing?
yeah. So it's really important. Obviously, like the obvious ones, um, like cash runway and cash flow, and all of those kind of things. But also just like digging down into kind of the ratios of where their money is going and where their money is actually making them the most money. And so, looking at like what is their marketing budget? Like what of their marketing budget actually has an ROI? What actually is there a return on investment? And for some companies, that billboard out there may be doing fantastic. The only way that we're going to know it is if they're asking their customers, like, how did you hear about us? And they say, like, oh, well, that billboard that I drive past every day. And then when my water heater broke, then like, or my tooth broke, or that I knew who to call because, we had that memory aid. But then for other businesses, it might be, some sort of like sponsored advertising online, or, but actually like identifying where as a percentage of revenue this money has a return on investment. And so that comes down to so many different factors. It can even come down to employees. What employee, and we're not going to talk about like layoffs or things like that, but where can employees, um, where's the benefit of helping them when we reach that point of hiring someone where they are actually, instead of costing the business, where they're actually making the business money? So we don't want to just hire an employee to just offset a burden. We want it to be in a role where they're actually helping to make the company more profitable. And so, like, you have to look at all of those numbers broken down. And those are things that anyone can do, any business owner can do. The challenge is that how do we strain that data out? Like, if we don't have the right tools to strain it out, then it becomes really, really challenging. And that's where I built systems and workflows to be able to kind of sift that data out and see exactly this
Yeah.
is how this is affecting them. Do they need to spend more on marketing? Do they need to spend less? Are there operating expenses, or, COGS, or all those different things? Like, how are those moving parts affecting their business?
Yeah, for sure. And that, yeah, just the importance of tracking your numbers and knowing like where your data is coming from, what it's telling you. Cause like at the end of the day, like numbers don't lie, right? And your data has a story. And so it's like, are you listening to what that story is telling you? So I'm
Absolutely.
definitely on board with what you're doing. Do you have like some sort of like I know you mentioned you have your own like workflows and process, but like do you have some sort of way to like bring it all together that they can, see what's working, what's not, or is that something that you then just like give them a report? That's it.
Yeah. So we usually meet like once a month, have
Okay.
like have a scheduled, more formal type meeting. But I also like to be accessible to clients. So I don't set a limit on, um, you can only call me or email me X number of times or for X number of minutes.
Okay.
In the early days, there's going to need to be more communication, more interaction. We're building a relationship. And then as time passes, then, we might get more down to just having that formal monthly meeting, where we very visually discuss that information, and we come to a decision together of what needs to be the focus really over the next course of the month. And so I like to set, while we want long term goals, we also want short term goals. The way that our brain works is that if we set things out too far in the future, our brain prioritizes efficiency. Our brain says, I need to be efficient and I need to focus on what's urgent. And if that's a year down the road, then I will focus on it 11 months and 4 weeks down the road. Like, we will, we will get to it when it's urgent. So instead, when we set those short term goals, um, then as people, we prioritize that. Our brain says, okay, like this is doable, something that otherwise seemed impossible. And so we set those short-term goals and we say, okay, so this is our goal. And then this is the roadmap of how we are going to get from point A to point B before our next meeting. In the meantime, if you need something, I'm here. And we can brainstorm it if you feel like, you know it just, like, am I sure that this is what I want to do? We can hash it all out again until we get to that comfortable point of like, oh, I trust you. So yeah, and then once a year we meet and we review that impossible annual goal that we set, and we see exactly how we've made it. So it's my responsibility to keep track of the impossible goal and to make sure that we're on track to meet that impossible goal. And then it's the businesses, it's the client's responsibility as the CEO of their business to make sure that they are taking those smaller steps so that we can get there.
Yeah. And I love how you broke that down. I never like really thought about it that way. Like that's a good way to like explain it of like why it's like people don't really succeed at long-term goals unless like their short-term goals are, towards that. I never really thought about it that way. That's kind of cool explanation that you gave. So,
Yeah. I always say that's the same reason that when I know that I have guests coming over for a month, that I will get more done in the last 10 minutes preparing for those guests than I will the entire month. Because our brain just is like, oh, it's not it, like I'll take care of it when it's important.
yeah, I'm gonna have to start, yeah, thinking that way. So what advice would you give someone who's either like just starting to scale their business or honestly like just take their operation seriously and like want to, get their books cleaned up or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first step is and this might seem very simple, but the first step is to set up a separate business account. So I know that that seems very foundational, and there might be some people listening who go like, "Well, duh," but that is probably the most challenging part of the job in accounting. Is that sometimes people do not understand that very simple process of needing to make sure their business is separate from their personal life. And then reach out to an advisor, even if it's just to set a one on one kind of consult to ask them exactly how they should be handling this. I also do have an ebook on my website that kind of sets up similar steps of like, this is kind of what you need to know to be prepared so that you um, aren't caught off guard and so that you can actually be building the business that you want. A lot of times people, after they've had their business for a year or two, when I ask them that question is, so why did you start your business? And sometimes they can't remember
Yeah.
because they're so stuck it's almost like quicksand. And so have a very clear idea of why you're starting your business and make sure that your business decisions align with the reason that you started your business. So don't start making sacrifices that are going to impact other parts of your life if that wasn't part of your original business plan.
Wow, no, that's good. Yeah, because yeah, when you start a business, no one like really tells you, like you need to have like, this in line. Like people just like start and then try and figure it out later. And I think it's super helpful. Like, yeah, if you can kind of have that as you're going, like setting things up, like, okay, I need this, that, like that is game changing for a lot of people. Yeah, no one tells you that when you are like about to start a business. You just jump in and then it's like, oh, I'll just figure it out later. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, you
it's
really don't realize that you're gonna be the receptionist, the marketer, the social media manager, the bookkeeper, the all of these different things, and, that's super overwhelming to think like, "Oh, I'm gonna wear all these hats," but if you set it up in a simple way and kind of create that own roadmap of your own to make sure that your trajectory is always towards why you started the business, you'll find that it's a lot easier to focus and that the business won't take over your life the same way as if you lose track of why you started.
yes, which is very common. I feel like for small businesses. So if you could go back and give your past self like one piece of clarity, what would it be?
Wow. So if I went so far back, it would probably be if we went all the way back to the diaper service. I would have planned for my business to be successful. So many people don't. They plan for their business to fail because that's what we hear about is, 50% of businesses are going to fail within 5 years. You know what that means also? That 50% of businesses succeed in 5 years. And so plan for your business to succeed. And that's what I really wish that I had done, that I had set more provisions in place for that business to succeed. Obviously, that would mean that I wouldn't be sitting here today, But that's the advice that I would give myself, and that's the advice that I give to other people too. Is don't prepare for failure. You have a capacity for amazing things, impossible things. So prepare to succeed because you're gonna do amazing with that.
Yeah. No, that is so true. I didn't even realize, yeah, like people set themselves up to fail, honestly, like, especially if you're thinking that, like, you're just, like, manifesting that to come true. So, yeah, just, like, flipping your mindset to be like, "No, like, this is gonna work, and it's gonna take time." Like, it's a long-term thing. I think some people think, like, they're gonna, just get rich quick and, want to hit that $1 million in 1 year. And it's like, no, like, if you want to sustain and have a long-term business, like, it's going to take a long term, like, it's going to take a little bit. So just being patient and like, just keep moving. So, oh my gosh, very cool. Well, before we wrap up, like, where can people connect with you or learn more about what the work you do and how you can help them?
Yeah, so absolutely. Our website, digitsquid.com, and that's digitsquid.com. I always have to spell it out. Is we try to have resources. The website's being rebuilt right now, but we do have a free ebook there that people can download. And then also other resources that we're going to be adding as the website gets its kind of makeover. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. And just my personal LinkedIn is a great place for us to connect. And if people have questions or they're starting out and they want to know um, what, where even to get started, I love offering that kind of like quick meetup to give them direction. So those are great places to find me.
Okay, very cool. Well, that was such a great conversation with Corry. And Corry, again, I appreciate you taking the time to share your story and insights with us. If you got value from today's episode, follow Next Sell Over wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you know a bookkeeper, CFO, or founder who's scaling a lean team and would enjoy this conversation, send it their way. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.